Hey, good morning. Happy Saturday morning or good afternoon if you are on the East Coast watching this. If you are catching this live, say hello. If not, and you're catching the replay, drop a comment below and type #replay. I'm Jen Fontanilla. I am certified money coach, author, and speaker, and I'm dedicated and committed to helping women build and create their ultimate life without having to worry about money, and helping them gain clarity, hope, and confidence, and also mastering their money and their mindset. So I actually was on a class this morning earlier. It's in the East Coast, so I had to get up a little early. Actually, not because I wake up early anyways, but today's class is covering life insurance. And I know sometimes that is like an unsexy conversation. I think people typically will think, oh, investments, and all these other things are so much more exciting. But I've been talking about life insurance for a long time. And if you're catching this, hit the share button because this is going to be very important stuff. I'm going to talk about some things that I see the nightmares and the problems when people don't take care of this stuff. So I think it's really, really important. So make sure you share this. Again, if you're catching this on the replay, make sure you hit this share button down below with somebody you love and care about. So with that said, so this morning's class was about life insurance and estate planning. And those things are super, super important. In fact, oftentimes we want to just do the investing. Like I said, a lot of people are like, oh, this is like, exciting, or that's what they think. Because it tends to be the thing that they want to talk about. But insurance, estate planning, that's like the foundation. It's the foundation of any financial plan. And too often we ignore that part. And so I think it's just really, really important to talk about it. So when we have life insurance, basically it's what the word we use in our industry is indemnify. But let me back up. The reason why I talk about life insurance is because I've been an agent for over 15 years. I think I don't talk about that enough. And I remember in the beginning, it was just like, really, life insurance? But it is so powerful. It is so powerful when you have it in place. I have seen what it can do for people and their families, and I have seen what happens when you don't have it in place. Massive devastation, financial problems all over the place, and it's just not a good situation to be in. And so over the years, I've been helping people, making sure that they have the coverage, that they have it in place, and it's so important. I think too often we ignore it and we think, oh, I don't need it. No, I'll look into it later. But the crazy part is when people want to look into it later, I'm like, why do you want to look into it later? Do you know when you're going to die? And that's the thing too, like, how could you say you don't need it? And, sometimes I get that question, well, what if I don't have dependents? Well, what if I don't this? There are other ways to use the life insurance as well. There will be other videos on that, but I want to just explain why it's so important. So I think what's interesting too, in light of what's happened with COVID, it's taught us what can happen when there's an emergency. Obviously, we didn't expect this to happen, but it has placed so many people in a situation where there is either a huge financial loss because of income or no more jobs, or you weren't an essential worker, or unfortunately you experience a loss or death in the family because of the situation. And so it made me think, when we were in this class this morning, the statistic was about 224,000 people have been affected. There's been death, and I can't help but think, how many of those families had coverage. I personally didn't know anybody that has happened to when it came to passing away from COVID. But I mean, I have already seen the financial devastation that's happened to people who lost their jobs. But those people can find opportunity later on. But what if they're never coming back because they passed away? And so now it's left people in a situation like, well, now how am I going to pay for this? And you guys have seen this, and I don't want to get on a rant, but I need to get on a rant because I can't stand it when I see GoFundMe pages because a family had lost somebody and now there's medical bills to pay. The surviving spouse needs groceries. There's always some form of there's little children involved and they need the financial help. And my question is always, why didn't they have insurance? And here's the misconception. One, If you got it at work, I promise you it's probably not enough. Typically at work, it's free, and you're only going to either get 1 to 3 times your annual salary, if that. And then the second thing is it's not portable, meaning if you quit, that coverage doesn't go with you. And so if you're challenging me and say, well, I have it at work, do you know how much? And do you know the rules? Is it a situation where you're paying into it and you can take it with you? Oftentimes that's not the case. And so this is a perfect example of like, you should look into it. And so, you know, that's another reason why you need to just make sure, okay, what coverage do you have and what are the rules? Because sometimes people have this idea, well, I have this. And some of the mistakes I see people do is that they don't know what kind of policy they have. They don't know for how much. If it's a term policy, they don't even know how many years they've had it. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people do is not be financially organized. I've done a video on that. I don't remember if it's on YouTube, but I'm getting stuff together. But if you also want to join my financial community, it's called, just go to joingennow.com. I do have a video about getting organized. And so I've seen it where people don't even know where their policies are. It's crazy, people. You have to start getting organized, because if something happens and you don't know who to call, you don't have that 800 number, you don't know your agent's information, that's not the time to be looking in the kitchen cupboard for the policy, or that junk drawer in the hallway or in the kitchen. Like, where did I put it? This is the time to get organized. This is the thing that kills me, because it's like, I'm sorry, I did not mean that because I said kills me and I'm talking about insurance. But this is the thing that kills me, is that people put so much time into planning a vacation, put so much time into shopping and figuring out what they're going to buy on Amazon, and they won't take the time. I know I might be stepping on some toes, but it's for your own good. And they won't take the time to get organized. And it's so important that you get those documents together, okay? So anyhow, those are some of the things. The other things that you also need to think about is, like, if that person is gone, whose ever income that, you know, you're depending on, it could be your spouse, it could be, you know, a parent, or whatever the situation is. Think about it. If that income stopped coming in, how are you going to continue with life? How are you going to continue with your bills, with utilities, with your needs, your children's needs, and anything, just pretty much living life? If that money is no longer there, what would you do? And that's where the financial devastation can come in, because that life insurance isn't in place. Now, so that's if I'm talking about death, but there are other ways to use insurance to create generational wealth, or to create cash flow, or to create another resource for income or retirement. So those things we'll talk about later, but it's just important, even at the bare minimum, that you have some coverage for burial costs and things like that if something should happen. And again, you know, this is the other thing too. You know, when I see car washes and bake sales and GoFundMe pages, I talked about this last year when it was National Insurance Awareness Month in September every year. It just makes me go, like, why didn't you get a policy? Another misconception is people think it's expensive, and it's not. You literally, some of you all have more expensive cell phone plans than the cost of an insurance premium per month. It's not that crazy. It's just, you don't have anything to reference it. You haven't even looked into it. And so I want to encourage you, if you have, you know, dependents, if you're in a situation where you don't even have it, I want to ask you, why not? What are you going to do? What are you going to do if you find yourself, or your family, what would your family do if they're depending on your income to come in and all of a sudden it just stops because you're gone? What are they going to do? Are they going to be left in this financial mess because there wasn't any planning put into place? I'm going to talk about this at another time, but the other thing that's also critically as important is estate planning. It's not enough to just have a will. There needs to be a trust. Most likely, we want to avoid probate, because we can't make these decisions after the person is gone. So it's super, super important to start looking into these things if you haven't implemented this into your overall financial picture, because I've seen the mess. You know, going back to insurance, I've seen, you know, I had friends who had a family member pass away. And this is what happens, you know, in one of the classes that we had talked about, I think it was 2 weeks ago, this financial class that we've been doing on a weekly basis. The question was, would you let family members or friends borrow money from you? Most people said no. So if you know that that argument is already out there where people wouldn't even let you borrow money, and I even had another, somebody had contacted me through my website of asking about, she's in a situation where she's already borrowed so much money from friends and family. It got to the point where she's in a very embarrassing situation. She can't pay them back. And so if a person is put into a situation where there's no more income and they don't know how they're going to pay for things and there's no life insurance in place, I mean, what is a person supposed to do? So when this particular friend had an uncle pass away, it wasn't what she was noticing was that there were the family members, the siblings, the adult children of the uncle that had passed away, they were arguing. You go pay for the funeral. Like, well, you guys make more than we do. Or, well, you guys don't have kids, so you should pay more than we should. It was just ugly. And if any of you drop in the comments below, type in a yes. If you've ever been in a situation where you had to plan a funeral, it is so crazy. You got family members flying in. You got to contact everybody. I'm also a graphic designer, so I've had to create the funeral brochure. Then you got to find out, like, well, who's going to be the pallbearers, and then who's going to do the reading, and then who's going to plan the reception afterwards. Okay, who's paying for the food? It's like a whole nother to do. On top of mourning the loss, on top of everything else that has to get planned. And if there's no money, and now there's arguing on top of it, I'm telling you, this is why this is so important, because money can create so many problems and tension when things aren't properly planned. So this isn't just about, okay, I'm going to address one more thing too. So now I feel like I'm on a rant. Sometimes I hear people joke around with me like, well, just throw me in a cardboard box. Oh, well, just burn me up and cremate me and throw me into the, I'm telling you, I am not making this stuff up. People have said this to me. I had a call with another prospect, a client last week. He said, just throw me into the ocean. And I'm like, okay, people, it's not that easy. And if you're thinking about cremation, it's not that much cheaper than actually getting buried in a box or a casket. Okay, is not that much cheaper. There's still things that need to be done. It still costs money. Everything in the funeral business costs money. This is why it's so, every time I see these bake sales, I'm like, dang, you must be selling like dozens of cookies because it is not cheap. Or you must be washing like 1,000 cars because it is not cheap. And so these are the types of things I think all the time where my heart is like, why didn't they just get a policy? And if somebody tried to talk to you before, why didn't you listen? Or why isn't anybody being open-minded to it and just ignoring it? And I'm telling you, this is so important. It is so important. It is the foundation of any financial plan. So anyhow, enough of my rant. The only basic information that somebody needs in order to find out how much things would cost is you just need to know you should know your date of birth. Or when you're going to get a quote, you have to put in your date of birth, how much you're considering. Typically 100,000 is like the minimum. And then, and if you're wondering like, well, that's a lot. No, it's not. Because if you think about your annual salary, how much does that cover? Okay, then when that runs out, then how much is, then, so you see how 100,000 could just go like that? It really isn't enough, especially when people have credit card bills and they're married, your spouse will inherit that debt. That's another lesson. And then you also need to consider your health situation. If you're not healthy, if you have diabetes, high cholesterol, heart conditions, things like that, those things will affect your rating in terms of like how much you are going to pay in your premium. So for example, like if we take car insurance as an analogy, the more accidents, the more tickets, it's like it's bumping up how much your premium is. So it's the same thing in life insurance. The more health issues you have, the higher your premiums are going to be per month. Okay, so I just wanted to get here and hop on and just talk about this because I just got off that class and I was like, man, we got to talk about this. So a lot of people have been coming to me lately, like, hey, I need a policy, or hey, can you look into this, or I have this, do we have enough? And so it's just, I'm actually inspired, and that, people are looking into this. People are actually reaching out to get some help into looking into their situation. So if you have questions, DM me, drop a comment below if this video helped or anything, you know, heart, like, reaction, emoji, whatever. So thank you for listening. Again, if you're catching the replay, type in #replay. Share this button for anybody that you know needs to hear this, especially if you're in a situation where you know you're the one that needs that person to get the insurance. Definitely share this with them. And with that said, have an amazing rest of your weekend, and I'll catch you later. Bye.